Dr. Liggins, thanks so much. As you know, there are a lot of questions out there, parents and constituents, so we want to try to answer some of those today. Let's start with the budget. So right now, the contingency fund number is
$26.3 million, which is about 3.9% of the overall budget.
okay. Now, as I understand, the Fayette County mandate is you need to be at 6%?
Yes, there's a policy where the board has it at 6%. The state is at 2%.
Right.
So we're just shy of 4% at 3.9.
Okay. Will there be something Monday night to alter that 6% to lower that, or is it 6% just a suggestion, really? The 2% is what you have to be at? Or?
Well, I mean, it's more than a suggestion, I guess. It is part of the board's expectation that that's where it is. It's part of an administrative policy. And so we're actually looking at what actual expenses got us to below that 6%. And we're almost there. Potentially by Monday night, we'll be able to share all of the information. Or some of the information. We're really waiting until the audit is completed, our annual external audit, to ensure that we have everything and we don't have to change that number or change the way we got there. So.
Okay. That's my next question. So you mentioned the probe has been ongoing. The status is you feel that we could have some answers and a report on that by Monday night's meeting?
Okay, there's a couple of things.
Okay.
There's a few things happening actually.
Okay, sure. Okay.
Every year, by law, state law, we have an external audit that comes in and looks at our numbers, look at accounting practices, et cetera. That's in addition to the investigation into personnel, and that is in addition to the investigation that the board approved earlier this week to put out. It's actually going to be with the audit committee to have that another investigation occur.
Okay. So the numbers Monday night we will hear, do you think will be done by Monday night, is
It's the balanced working budget. So it's the budget of the final numbers that we are presenting to the board for this year's working budget, what we'll be operating. And it's in the black, it's balanced, and it does not have any tax increases, rate increases for our citizens. And so.
Okay. That's a big thing I know people want to hear about. You're going to raise my taxes, which is where we were back in May, I think, right?
Yes.
The earliest year, and that's what kind of took us down this road. What has happened in the weeks and months since then that you're able to be back in the black and make up that? Is it still a $16 million deficit
Yes.
you're looking at?
Yes.
Still? Okay. How are you able to go through and make that up in the weeks and months since then?
Really, we just started looking at every single thing that we were spending on and seeing exactly where we can make cuts. And one of the things I wish we had done this sooner, it was we were ultimately, when I got to a point where I said, I just don't want to pursue the OLT any longer. It was obvious that there were quite a bit of community and citizens that weren't interested in doing that. And I just called everyone back to the drawing board and said, let's see what we can cut, let's see what we can do, and went to the board and removed that as an option, and still having the board priorities that they have chosen to be included in the budget, but yet cutting back in other areas and making sure also that we're protecting the classroom as much as possible. So that's really been important when we've been looking at these cuts. And so I'm glad we're able to do that. I wish we had done it previously, and hindsight's always 20/20, but here we are now, and I'm really excited and proud to be able to present to the board a balanced budget that is going to still have their priorities included in them and protect the classroom as much as possible.
You had the special committee members that you brought together when we talked in June. That process was just beginning. Mm-hmm. They put several options in front of you that appeared very viable, some that you could do without board approval, some with board approval. How helpful was that process, and can you share any of the things that they presented that may be a part of this plan you're submitting on Monday?
Yeah, in fact, one of their recommendations was to lower the contingency to 4%, and again, we're just shy of that. So then another, they had several recommendations that are long term, and so we're actually have reached out to them and asked who's interested in serving more on a long-term basis throughout this year as well. And so we'll be reconvening that group to really see what other options we have available. But we are, I was very pleased to have the opportunity to bring in citizens of all walks of life. We had business people, we had parents, we had students, we had everyone that came together to really for the benefit of our kids here in Fayette County, and to make sure that we were looking at all possible options. And so this is going to be, you know, ongoing. It's not going to be turned around in 1 year. It's going to be something that's going to take us continuing to work, continuing to look at things, and continuing to make some tough decisions.
Okay. Back to the investigation of where the money went, how we got to this in terms of the deficit. Can you tell us, where is that probe now? When will it finish? What's the status right now?
Hoping that probe will be done fairly soon. We are at a point to where it's, you know, I think maybe winding down because there's been legal issues introduced into it and potential litigation. There's very limited information that I can share, but I'm hoping it's over sooner than later. I welcome all of the probes that we're doing at this point. I think any time we can get better information about how we're doing, what we're doing, the processes, and getting to the bottom of something that is not going as well as we'd like it to go is always good for me. I'd really appreciate knowing that information, finding out the facts, and putting the facts out there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of speculation out there. And so I'm very much ready to have the truth, some results of both internal and external audits and investigations to get some definitive answers for people.
You don't think it'll happen before the end of the month, but maybe possibly October?
October-ish, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What is the protocol when it comes to expenses? Who is the gatekeeper as this deficit was mounting? Who is the gatekeeper, or what processes are in place to say, hey, wait a minute, let's pump the brakes, we've got a situation over here?
Yeah, well, there are reconciliations every single month. And so once that starts, it's a very weird budget cycle, because in January we pass a draft budget, then in May it's a tentative budget. July, the actual new school year, technically the fiscal year begins, but then we wait until September to actually pass a working budget and have a tax rate passed and all of those things. And so it's, in some ways, it's very difficult to determine what spending is going to be. Hiring is still occurring when we've passed a tentative budget, but once people are in place, you obviously, those people are contracted to be in place, but you don't know until September what the final numbers are going to be. And then that fluctuates throughout the year. A budget is a plan, and you know, those numbers change throughout the year. That's why we do reconciliation. That's why we look and see exactly where we are spending every single month. And so we knew as early as a little before December, I think it was November, that spending due to inflation, due to the amount of experience that we've been able to recruit, and the educational level of some of our teachers and staff have been much higher than ever before in history. And so that certainly contributed to it, which is a good problem to have, mind you, because it means more experienced folks are choosing Fayette County to teach and to work and to lead, but that also impacts our budget. And so those are things that we've just really looking at, seeing that we can be a little bit more moving forward, a little bit more better predictive analysis to see where those numbers will fall ultimately.
Okay. There have been reports that both the FCPS budget director and a member of the board were raising red flags as early as spring of 2024 to say, hey, we've got a spending issue. Your response, are those reports accurate? Do you recall that happening in earlier in 2024? And what's your response to those claims?
Well, one thing I cannot speak to the budget director situation and all of that. We're really looking into it. One thing I do want to make very clear is when a person is placed on leave, it is not to say they're guilty of anything, that they've done any wrongdoing. It's really to make sure that we can have an investigation that's expedited, that removes any person that may be part of that investigation out of the way for that to make it more expedited. So I want to make that very clear that that is certainly not the case. There were some emails that I received from a particular board member I receive lots of emails sometimes from that particular board member that raises all sorts of questions, some valid, some not so much, and so that's all I'd like to say about that, but it is certainly something that wasn't unusual for concerns to be risen.
On Tuesday, you were in Frankfurt, and there were some questions that came up about your own expenses on
Yes.
that. With that process, are your expenses subject to review in the current system? That was one thing that was really out of that. One of the shocking things said from the committee you spoke with. What is your response to that now, a couple days later?
Well, one of the things I can say is an open book. I'm wanting everything to be looked at to see exactly how we got here, whether that's expenses that I incurred, expenses anyone else incurred. I think that's very fair and open. One of the things I would like to just respond to is that, when I came on in 2021, there was a very clear call from our community that they wanted something different in Fayette County Public Schools. As I mentioned on Tuesday, we had had over 17,000 responses, dozens and dozens of community meetings and feedback sessions. And the community said they wanted to go in a new direction. Many folks stated that we've been having conversations for over 20 years about the same issues. And they wanted to see something different moving forward. And that ultimately brought us to our New Way Forward strategic plan, where we said we're going to provide a world-class education to our students. And with that requires us to do things differently. It requires us to do things in a first-class manner. And we're seeing the results of that. We have historic achievement. We have, for the first time in our current accountability system, no gaps for our Black, Hispanic, and economically disadvantaged students. We have no campuses that are targeted as the bottom of the state. And those are things that just simply weren't the case before. There's also a study from Harvard and Stanford that Fayette County Public Schools students are rebounding 4 times faster in math and 2 times faster in reading than the national average. And so that requires very intentional work. That requires very purposeful work, not just by me as superintendent, but by everyone. But I believe very strongly that not only does everyone in the organization have a right to get professional learning and to get better at their jobs, I think we all have a responsibility, and we owe that to our kids. And so I make no apologies for getting better at my job, learning more about how I can impact students, and ensuring that my staff, whether that be teachers, whether that be other leaders, principals, custodians, cafeteria, everyone has that responsibility and that right. And so I'm very much unapologetic about ensuring that we're getting better. Our kids deserve it, our community deserve it, and quite frankly, it's what was demanded when I came in as the superintendent 5 years ago.
What changes do you think, it's been an interesting past few months, what changes do you think will come about because of this process you've gone through here in the last 4 to 6 months?
I'm hoping we get to a point to where one of my biggest things is to make sure we're rebuilding trust with our community. And so I really want to make sure that we are putting out as much information as we can. I'm hoping that truth prevails and that rumors subside and people get a very clear understanding of what have occurred as a result of the investigations that are taking place. I also hope that we get to a point to where we can put systems in place that are long-term, that are best practice, and ensuring that we have communication in a variety of areas that I think has been lacking in years past. And so I'm hoping just for a better system moving forward overall.
This is not your first rodeo. You've been a superintendent before. You've been through this process. But even with that, we're always constantly evolving, learning. What changes would you make, or how would you do things differently yourself in the way you approach this?
Oh my, ask a lot more questions. One of the things that my background and my through education has been, I started as a classroom teacher. and have worked in, as a principal and as a central office administrator and school leader, et cetera. And so, and I'm in a position to where, as a superintendent, I have to depend on people that have expertise in areas that I don't. I have a whole group of CPAs and accountants and all those folks that are working with our budget. I have legal people that are working on, in our law office and in a variety of other areas. And so one of the things that I've learned is to ask more questions, probe a little deeper, really get, try to get my hands a little bit more dirty in things without screwing them up, of course, that the experts do their jobs, but also learning enough to where I can ask the right questions, I can probe appropriately, and so that's really an area where I'm growing, and really pleased about the last few months how I've really learned quite a bit. Obviously, I'm not going to in a few months make up the difference of someone with 25 years of school finance and a master's in finance and a CPA, but I'm certainly working to ensure that I can have enough knowledge to ask questions and to ask for better explanations and to really get down to the nitty-gritty of things.
One word I've heard you use several times in these past few months is transparency. What does that look like? What do you plan to do moving forward to make sure that you adhere to that and you are more transparent? The school board, the FCPS, is more transparent to those looking for information.
Well, one of the things I've learned about transparency is it means different things to different people. And so really trying to find that balance. Sometimes when you give too much information, people feel that that's a lack of transparency because it's too much to digest. And then if you don't give enough, then you have the exact opposite issue. Some people think having access to me at games or at community events and to be able to ask questions is transparency. Other people think getting regular emails and updates. And so there's been a variety of things that we've done that we continue to look at to see how we can be more transparent and to try to get as much as we can with all of the different expectations and all of the different definitions of what that word actually means. For example, we have, for the first time ever, we're having, in the last couple of years, having most of our, all of our meetings where folks can come in and have public comment. We started doing a briefing after every single board meeting to send out to our community. We started a transparency dashboard. We're looking at creating another dashboard that allows people to manipulate the system and find different things in that way. And so really, we're still open ideas. We're still continuously working at it. And so I think as we learn more, as people ask for more, we're working to make sure that we can provide that.
Okay. What would you tell teachers, parents, staff members, community members, taxpayers? What would you want to say to them who possibly may now have questions they didn't have before, or possibly their faith in the system, in you, maybe have been tested during these past few months?
Well, I will tell you, I'm working on finding out the answers, and once we find out those answers, I will certainly make sure that we're working to fix them. Whatever systems are broken, whatever systems need to be tweaked, my goal is to make sure that we find out what got us here, how long it's been going on, and basically make sure that we put systems in place that we'd never return here again. And so both short-term and long-term. And so really it's a large organization with lots of moving parts. And so we're working very diligently every single day to make sure that that is done. In the meantime, what I've asked our teachers and our staff to do is continue to take care of our kids, continue to make sure that we keep the main thing, which is student achievement, and ensuring that we don't lose some of the gains that we've made along the way by many of the distractions. And so no matter what is going on, I want our focus to continually be on ensuring that our students are getting better academically, outcomes are increasing, and we're providing opportunities for our students that they can't get anywhere else. And simultaneously, I'm working to make sure that we're looking at what has got us here.